friends, welcome to the Pole Strong podcast with me, your host Becky Dunn. This episode is sponsored by EnviroCo, an environmentally friendly brand who pride themselves on sustainability. You guys can get 15% off using Becky15, just to make sure you spell my name right. Now, today's guest, she was my first podcast guest and I'm really excited to have her back talking all things competition. Jade, thank you so much for joining me.
She's back.
She's back.
So I wanted to speak to you today, basically as the competition guru. And I've seen that you've just started doing some packages for that, by the way. That I don't see why you wouldn't have done, like why you wouldn't do that. That's such a good shout. It's such a good shout. So talk to me first and foremost. What competitions are you involved? You involved in every competition that's in the UK, just not any that are outside, but like every competition in the UK, you must be like pretty much have a part of.
Well,
right?
not a part of all of them. I mean, I run quite a couple of them alongside Stace.
The big ones.
Yeah, and I've competed in a couple, but not really anymore because the only ones I can compete in are run, so I can't really take part.
You've had your fair share.
Yeah, I've definitely had my fair share. Yeah, I've probably competed since about 2014, 2015, started competing. But yeah, so Stacey, my business partner Stacey, so obviously she had X-Gen and Pole Theatre, which I'm now a part of as well. So we run those together. And then we've got our new one, which is Elite Pole Championships, which will be next year as well. Because it wasn't enough, apparently.
Nope. We always need more. Yeah. So like how did that come about? So you've been competing for a long time, like say 2014, so you've been competing for a long time. So when was it that you started thinking like, you know what, I want to get into, you know what, I want to start moving over to like the behind the scenes of a comp?
Well, because I did run a competition, I think this is pre-COVID, I can't remember the year, which was Pole Revolution, which I ran as well, alongside my old business partner Sam. But I kind of had the idea and I was like, oh, I'd like to dabble in it, because a fun fact, when I was younger, I always wanted to be involved in events, but I couldn't be asked to go to college or anything for it because I just thought it's too much effort, I won't be good at it. So it's funny how everything does a 360 almost.
100%, yeah.
And I just thought, I wonder what it'd be like to run a comp and get involved in it, because I've like helped out backstage, I've pole cleaned, I've done all like little bits like that and helped out that way. So I just had the idea and I said to Sam, shall we try it? So we gave it a go and it went okay. Like it was quite a good year. Unfortunately, we never went ahead with it after that because COVID hit and I moved and stuff like that. And then it wasn't until, again, about middle of COVID. I hate saying the COVID word now, but middle of that time, Stacey approached me about X-Gen and Pole Theatre and asked me how I would feel about stepping in with her. She did actually try to retire, we say, but I got her out of that. You're welcome. But yeah, I was just like, no, you need to stay involved. She wanted to really take a back step. I managed to keep her on board because we don't really want to lose Stacey. But so she managed to still stay on. So we do it alongside each other now, which is really good. And that's kind of how it will come about. Really.
Amazing. So many, I really wanted to talk. It's interesting because I'm doing a podcast with Annie tomorrow, Annie Norris, and I'm going to talk to her about the judging side of things in a little bit more depth, but I want to touch on this with you as well. But a lot of people, I think, I'm just like being generic here, but for you, or for the advice that you would give, when would you suggest people look to start competing?
So this, I think, solely depends. So you've got people that just, I don't know, people like, oh, I'd like to compete. You kind of need to define why. If it's like, you know, I want to compete, I want to be the best, I want to do this, I want to, you know, get popular, do whatever, start teaching workshops later in my career, fine, if it's for a career building kind of scenario. But you do generally get people that just want to go on stage. And at that point, say if they've never competed before, they might completely hate it. So normally what I advise people to do is like try a showcase first, like, or just try and get a video entry together. Even a video entry, if you're just doing it in a studio, you're still not going to get a feel for the stage. So if they've never competed before or been on stage, I'll always say do a showcase first, because you might hate it, but you might love it. And also competing can be stressful, like the further along in your career you get, and like when you start going up in levels, like the fun element kind of comes out of it a little bit. It's definitely more fun when you're a student, because again, you normally have an instructor, you've got a coach, they're with you from start to finish. When you get to like instructor level and stuff, you don't have as much time, so it gets a bit more stressful, and then you kind of have what is that word that we say, imposter syndrome. You get a lot of imposter syndrome.
My God, yeah.
So you get that element which stresses you out, but ultimately I think if you love the stage, it's worth it at the end of the day, because the minute you go on stage and come off, you're like, that was great, I want to do it again. Then you kick yourself when you enter another one and get in, because you have to start the process again. But it's always worth it in the end. But I think it just depends if someone's competed before or performed before or not, as to when they want to do it, because you've got all different types of levels. It's not like you have to be a certain level to compete, because you can enter at beginner, so it doesn't really matter what level.
Yeah. And I've noticed that actually with some of the competitions that have like that more recently have popped up, there's a lot of categories that just what's the word I'm looking for, like cater for everybody.
Yes, yeah,
all the way through, like, and I think it's really nice, the low pole flow. Can't remember what comp that was in. That was it, like, that's quite new, is it? Quite a new category.
I think Pam's comp.
Yeah, she put in a
BP something. Sorry, Pam. BP.
British. No, I do you know what? I spoke to her before when the video entries are going on too, like all about her comp. It's like, I can't remember the name, but it'll feel terrible. Edit it out.
I want to say it's British something. I'm going to find it, because I feel really bad if she listens to this now.
Let's find it.
Stacey competed in it as well.
Well, this is where I saw that Stacey did compete in it.
Yeah, so British Pole Instructor Championships.
Yes, yeah. And I remember actually when I spoke to her, because she was like, again, I think you can get real imposter syndrome in time for when you are an instructor wanting to compete. So, you know, having that competition for like instructors, I thought was brilliant. So, which leads me on to my next question. I feel like when you're looking to compete, it's very overwhelming on where to start, and I'll get into that in a little bit more detail. But where do you start in terms of what comp you compete in? Like, what would your advice be for that? Where do you think you start? Like, where do you personally, as someone who's been experiencing competing, like rank the level of competition? For example, like in my eyes, and I'm a real novice, pole theatre seems like quite a high-end competition. UKP PPC, you know, like that sort of, and I don't know where would you rank your comps, like in terms of like what's a good entry level comp for somebody and then moving on, how do you that's a bit of a wishy-washy question.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. And again, it definitely depends what your style is, because like you've tapped on, we've got so many different competitions with so many different types of categories. So like if you want to do hills, there's loads of competitions for hills. Depending on your style of hills, you've got all different styles as well. The same for if you're more of a performer and you're not really into tricks, there's categories for that. The low flow, like you said. So I think you have to define what you're good at and what you like to do. Not necessarily what you're good at, that's pretty bad wording, but what you enjoy doing and what inspires you to choreograph. If that's like you're someone who, you know what, I love a prop, I want to make a big show, then you've got pole theatre and things like that where that's what it's designed for, like come and give a show, that's what we want to see. If it's, again, you've got like people that just want to go out there and go trick, 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 then you need to find something that's more tricks based. So that's where, again, you'll probably go UK PPC and like elite pole championships that we've got next year. Again, it just depends what you like to do, because you've got tricksters, you've got people who like to perform. So you just need to find out what that person, I would say, want to do. And then again, there's loads of comps. I wouldn't say you have to go for like a higher level comp or a lower level comp. I wouldn't necessarily say any lower level comps. It just depends.
No, a comp is a comp, isn't it? It's still that competing element.
Exactly. And if it's, say for example, it's an amateur, so they're not instructors and they want to go down the performing route, you've got a good competition as well. One that I judge is UCAP, which is solely designed again at performing and the costume and again how it visually looks and theme and stuff like that. So that's probably a good place to start, again, for like student level as well. And then again, you can go on to things like pole theatre, but pole theatre has still got an amateur division.
It does, yeah, it does. But like I feel like there are some I don't know, maybe some other comps that are a little bit more tailored to that, or might be a bit more better for if this is your first comp. Like what comp do you go for? Like would pole theatre be the best first competition, for example, versus other ones, or does it not really matter? Do you
Again,
know?
I'm always going to say yes because I'm running it, but I'm like, don't pole fitter, just do it.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
if it was, and again, this is probably plugging at UCAP because my best friend runs that as well. But I would say I think it's a great entry level competition. I really think it is, because it goes, again, you can still enter as an instructor, but again, it's early instructor, and it goes from beginner up, and it's also not just pole, it's hoop as well. So you've got the hoop side of it as well. And I think that's, again, it eases you in. So if you're not solely based on tricks, you still got obviously a trick element to it, like you have of anything, of course you have, but I think that's quite a good place to start. The atmosphere is nice, it's friendly, it's just an environment that will fire you up, I think, to go on to do more. And I think, like you say, when you see things like pole theatre and all these bigger names, it can be intimidating, especially when you go on there and you watch videos of like Yvonne Smink and all these kinds of people at the pro show. You're like, oh my god.
Yeah, and that's it. Like, so if you were looking at, and I suppose there's so many factors, right? Like, what level are you, like you say, your style, there's so much to take into consideration. But I think that has always been for me, when I've looked at it previously, I'm like, I don't know where to start. I don't even know what competition to compete in. Like, I honestly, I wouldn't have a clue where to start. I really, really wouldn't. But then I suppose this is where having a coach comes in so handy.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm a online coach for, preparing the body for what we do. There's no reason why you wouldn't get a coach for preparing you for performing and competing. So this is where your new coach
where my platform was coming, because that's why it kind of needs it. And again, I do a lot of my students, the coaching, it will be helping them know, what shall I enter? They're like, what shall I enter next year? And it's like, obviously most of them, I know what they're good at and what they like to do, so I go X, Y, Z, let's do this. If it's someone new, we'll have like what I will be doing in the platform is having like a chat like this and just being like, look, what do you like to do? Have you competed before? What's your style? Do you know your style? And then we base it around that, and we can coach them that way to find a competition for them. Because ultimately you don't want to just be like, oh, let's enter, say it's a high trick level and this person's never been on stage, and also like they don't feel comfortable on the pole as much, for example. They might want to just perform first. So it's just a coach, I think, definitely comes into play, especially if they know the scene. Again, they can speak to people and stuff as well, but I think a coach is definitely very good to help them decide. But I think the main element of them is, one, knowing what they like to do, and two, why do they want to compete? Like, that's a good indication as to what kind of level comp they want to go into. So it's,
that's very good.
Fun. Are they doing it for career building? Then that might justify what competition you enter, if that makes sense.
That's really, really good. Yeah, no, it does. And I think even more so, I think this just plays to the fact of why it's so important to get a coach.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because otherwise you're just lost. So tell me, I know it all depends on the competition, but when you're looking at, is it hard when you look at the video entries? Like, when you have to decide at that point, like...
Yeah. So do you mean when you're judging video entries?
Yeah, what are you looking for in a video entry? What really captivates you?
Now, this depends on criteria, because again, I could like one thing and one judge might prefer another. So again, all judging has an element of like what you like in it, and it's like a opinion as well, but you also have a criteria that you have to stick to. So that does, like, if someone's performing a style that you're not into, that doesn't matter, because you've got a set criteria that you're looking at, and you have to go against that. So and again, depending on the competition, one competition might be based morely on tricks, so you're looking at the technicality of what they're doing, or again, there might be a high score for props or theme. And again, you have to take, and I find this quite hard when I have my own students, people tend to think that I judge them very highly, when I actually probably judge them the harshest. Because you kind of have to sit there and just take any kind of like emotional element out of it and just be like, look, this is the criteria and this is what I'm looking for. So you have to take any kind of emotional contact out of it and look at that criteria you've got. You also have people that just enter competitions with a bog standard video they'll use for all different competitions.
Oh, okay. So they don't really tailor it. They don't tailor it to the...
Okay. So my advice for anyone wanting to compete is, please read your criteria before you send a video, because then people get upset. For example, they don't get in, but it's like, well, read the criteria, because they might be, again, doing over the top acting and stuff like this when that comp's not for that. So look at your criteria, and I think that element kind of gets lost a little bit, and people just send any video off, which unfortunately is not always gonna tick the boxes.
No, and I think this is this is exactly what I wanted this podcast to provide, really, like as a starting point for people that maybe are thinking about competing or wanting to do it at some point, like to give them as much information as possible, where to start. Like this is amazing, Jade. Like, thank you for that. So I think it's really, really important. One thing I remember seeing somewhere on Insta, because you see it all over the place, don't you? Whenever there's a comp, you always like, I just see so much info go out, or people's opinions, or it's brilliant. But
Oh God.
one thing that I did see is someone saying that when you compete, you should like really study the judges and their style. What do you think to that?
Absolutely not.
No. Okay. All right. That's fine.
I think, yeah, that's absolutely not. That's like saying, okay, Jade's judging, let's do a really flowy piece and loads of dynamic pole. That might not be in the judging criteria. That's great that you can do that, and I will sit there and smile and love it.
Yes.
But if that's not in the, I'll be like, yeah, great. But if that's not in the criteria, that doesn't mean you're going to win. Also, I'm one judge. There's probably a panel of maybe 4 to 6 judges.
So this does highlight really how much the criteria you need to study and knuckle down on the criteria.
It's really important. I just really want people to just pay attention to it, because I think it's not, I wouldn't say lacking, I don't want to choose my words carefully. Well, yeah, lacking. People I think are just not reading it, and it's heartbreaking when people do get upset because they don't get in, because everyone works just as hard as the next person. But if you haven't read the criteria but the next person has, then they're probably going to get through.
And I suppose, and I don't want to upset anybody when I say this either, but I don't know how to word this. You know, you can't just do one video and submit it to every comp. Like that's
unless the criteria is the same, then great, but it generally normally isn't.
yeah. So so when people get upset and don't get in and vocalize that on socials, if they do you get anything directly? Do you ever have to pick up any of that stuff?
Yeah.
Is that hard?
It is very hard, but luckily I have a great business partner that we can just be like, right, okay, and obviously you work together with it. I can sometimes be quite hot-headed, and I will just throw myself into things without thinking, whereas Stacey will be like, rein it in.
Yeah. Are you quite impulsive?
What do you mean by impulsive?
Like, are you I'm really impulsive? Like, for example, if somebody messaged me on Instagram that like riled me up, I'd be like, right. Immediately, like no thinking. I'm just like, if I want something, I'll buy it. Like, I don't think things through sometimes. I'm really impulsive. So I suppose that's a bit like being hot-headed. You just react basically.
Hothead. Yeah, I'll just be like, go in. But then sometimes I'll just say it in my mind, and I'll be thinking it means one thing and it won't come across as that, and then it's just a whole. So she's always like, let's wait, just wait, don't reply yet.
Let's compose a response together. I love that. So yeah, okay, cool. So video entries follow your criteria.
Also, like, watch old videos, like watch videos of previous finals and see what people were doing. Like, say if it was pole theatre again, I'll keep using that as an example. If you want to enter drama, watch some old drama videos and see what people are doing. Like, watch what the winners have done. Like, what have they done to get that like winning title? What have they done that's different? Like, do a little bit of investigating as well. Don't just, I don't know, hope for the best, I guess. Make sure, I'd say, definitely don't investigate the judges, because I think that's a load of crap. Just look at the criteria. That is the main thing you need to do.
Okay, cool. So how does the criteria differ from comp to comp? I mean, I know that's quite generic, because I know obviously with pole, depending on the competition, like pole fit is going to be very, like you say, very dramatic. It's costume based and stuff like that. So with, let's say, a trick based comp, how is that criteria done? Like, who puts that criteria together? Who then, and how does that judging work? So do you then have to mark it out of 10? Like, how does that work?
It depends really how the organizer does it. I've done the criteria for the elite. The X-Gen, I revamped it and got authorization from the franchise owner, and they liked that as well. So I think doing it out of 10 is easier for a judge sitting on a panel, because if you do it anything above, sometimes it gets a little bit confusing on the score. So out of 10 is probably a little bit easier, but you'll have different elements to it. X-Gen, each category is a different criteria, so that's like a complete different ballpark, because you have like hard, flow, old school, theatre and stuff like that, so they are all completely different judging criteria for each section.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
It must be so hard for you guys when you're judging, like how you think about how quickly performance goes by, and then when your head goes down, then you're like, oh fuck.
Yeah, it's like, wait, what? And it's very much like, I'm a judge. I like to obviously make sure I'm constantly watching so I don't miss anything. And then it's like, right, I've got like 2 minutes or not even that, blood, just write it down. And I think again, that goes on like a different kind of pathway where you get your feedback, and sometimes you'll read something and interpret it wrong, because again, as judges, we only get like maybe a minute to write stuff down, so we write it as quick as we can so we can give them as much, but sometimes it's probably worded in a way they might not understand or maybe think is worse than what it is and stuff as well, so they have to understand there's not a lot of time to do that.
Yeah, well, I suppose you're scribbling.
Yeah,
like you haven't got
I'm
the time
surprised
to,
they
like,
can even read it.
you haven't got the time to like extend out what you mean. Like if you've given them some feedback, you can't give them the body of that, because you have to literally just scribble.
Yeah,
so you're really, really tight on time. So like let's say trick based then. So do you have a whole bunch of tricks that sit higher? Like, how does that work?
So, and again, so with elite, so it's kind of like again, all different sections. So you've got like a section which will involve the technicality. So that will not only be like how hard the trick is, you'll also need an element of, for example, like you'll need dynamic stuff. You will need some spin pole stuff. If you want to add flexibility, which is also a part of it, are you doing splits as well as back bends? That makes sense. So you want to be ticking all these different boxes to get your bigger score. And then you'll have another technical element, which is how it's done. You know, are you rushing into it, out of it? Do you look like you can actually do it? Are you like shaking like this in an Iron X? Are you, but you know what I mean? Like, are you like just about in it, or
yes, are you stable in it, basically?
Yeah, and again, it's not just technicality as in, okay, like this person's done a rainbow Marchenko, but have they done that rainbow Marchenko properly? Have they got into it smoothly? Have they got out of it smoothly? Are they extending their lines properly in it, etc., etc.? So it's not just, okay, you can do a rainbow, yeah, great, 10 points. But wait, there's more to a rainbow than just doing a rainbow. There's also, again, the ins, the outs. Are they going it from something different into something different after? Is it something you haven't seen before? So you've got so many elements to it. If it's
wow.
Yeah.
So for people that aren't really flexible, then if they're at like, if they don't really have their splits or their back bends or whatever it might be, like, is that a possible sort of
I would say,
yeah, you know where I'm going with that.
So it's not necessarily a negative, because say, for example, you've got back problems and you physically can't do like a lot of back bends, you would just do a lot more split focus. And if you're still doing a hell of a load of splits and they're all done like executed perfectly, then I don't see why you still couldn't get a good score.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But also, like with splits and back bends, there's also like fake it till you make it poses as well. It's not like you do like the most, like you don't have to do a spatchcock. You could do a trick where the line is faked but it looks like a gorgeous line. That still comes into a flexibility aspect as well, because again, we do have to appreciate some people might have limitations in their body as well, so there is that element to it as well, and you can't really like discriminate against things like that too.
No, but like you say, there is ways around it, isn't there? And I suppose, like you say, it's the execution of the lines.
Yeah,
this is why it's so important to do your conditioning and stuff like that, because you have to build that foundation. Like I always say this to my students, and you probably say the same, like, what's the point of being able to get into something if you can't execute it or get in nicely? Like, what is the I'd rather not be able to do the trick instead of get into something and then, like, when people like quickly grab photos and it's like,
and then come back, get me, like
yeah. And like I remember, like I've had a couple of like people will show me photos on Instagram. They're like, oh, they didn't show me how. It doesn't show the video of how to get into it, and I'm like, yeah, because she probably couldn't get into it. Like she's fallen into it, and like it's a screenshot. No, not because that that's a lot of people do that, but
we've all been that.
we've all done it. Yeah, absolutely. We're like, holy shit, let's take this. But it's true, right? Like you want to be able to execute moves nicely, and you want to be able to flow between move to move.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's super important. So I had a question on about judging. What was I going to ask? I just had it on the forefront of my mind. So do you know what, actually there's always one thing that I've always been like that I'm always really surprised about, I don't know how it works, is why there isn't a competition that involves like hoop and pole,
like at the same time.
Yeah, well, not the same time, but why, how you have two poles on stage?
Yeah.
Why couldn't you have a pole and a hoop? Do you reckon that would work?
Well, because you still have the rig points normally in the middle.
Yeah, I've just never seen it, and I'm really surprised that like for people that do pole, I suppose it would actually make it really difficult to like judge them, wouldn't it?
You might need also like a hoop element.
Yeah, but it's always surprised me, like people that do both.
Yeah,
like I've always thought it'd be amazing to do like a hoop and pole piece.
yeah.
To like,
I feel like I'm sure Lizette did like a guest performance at IPAT one year, which had hoop and pole. I might be making that up, but I'm sure she did, because I'm sure IPAT they obviously do the hoop and the pole, and I'm sure the poles are still up by the hoops like in the middle. I'm sure it is. I might be making that up. I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm surprised they don't. Right. So what I was going to ask is for you then, for so say you've got someone come to you for coaching to be a part of the, you know, they want to compete. Where does it start? Where is the starting point? So you've identified what they want to get out of it, whether it's, you know, for them personally or, you know, career, whatever it might be. Where's the starting point?
Well, what I normally say to them first is, okay, have you got any ideas? Do you know what you want to do? Have you got a theme, or have you got a song? Some people don't like themes. They might just have a song they like. You can sometimes make a theme around a song. It depends what type of person they are. So it's just a couple of questions first, which is literally just, what do you have a song? Do you have an idea? What do you like doing? What do you prefer, static or spin? And like, what tricks do you like doing? Like, are you a strength person? Are you more of a flexibility person? Do you like floor work? And it's just trying to get an understanding there first, and then we'll base it around that. And we don't normally go straight in. What I'll do is, depending on their answer, I'll just throw like a couple of static things at them, maybe some spin stuff, maybe some floor work, and just see how we get on in that first session. That's how we work around it. Because also what I like them to do is to also work around what they don't like as well, even if it's one element. If there's like, they don't like spin pole, I'd be like, okay, we'll do a focus on spin pole, and sometimes I'll get them to put it at the start of the routine, so I'm not worried about it as well. So if they don't like spin, I'll be like, right, the first combo will be your spin pole, but we're going to spend a bit more time focusing on this, because this is is not your strength, but also they will get stronger from doing it that way as well, because
100%
making themselves better in the long run. So I still like to push them a little bit, of course I do. I'm very much as well, they'll put moves in combos as well, where they'll be like, oh, I'm struggling with it, can we take it out? And I'm like, absolutely not until we're closer to the day. We've got to give it a chance, because some people like to just take things out straight away. So I'm quite like a bully, my girls will tell you, for making them keep it in as long as we can until there's like a cut-off line where we change things. But yeah, it's like almost like a consultation / private, where we see what they like and then just throw loads of random things at them, and then from there we can start mapping out what to do.
So do you put their choreo together for them, or do you work with them on it? You put it together for them?
Some of my students will have ideas, and I've got one student who will be like, right, I've got this song, she's great, she does it all the time, I've got this song, this is my theme, I want to do this. At this point in the song, I want to do this tumble. I'm like, it's great.
Yeah,
and it might even be
student.
Yeah, it's great. It's like, it might even be like, I don't have a tumble yet, but here I want to tumble down the pole. I'm like, fucking great. I'm sorry.
Oh, babe, you swear away.
But I'm just like, yeah, great. And then it helps it, because then they're also having an input as well. I try to get them to like have as much input as possible. So I'm not just being like, here's your choreography, because I don't want to give them a piece of choreography that I would do, because that's me. I want them to look like themselves on stage. I'm a believer on, like, we've all got our own style, so I want to help them find their own style as well. So most of the time they come, oh, can we do that thing you did here? I'm like, yes, we can, but let's stylize it to you. Let's make it look for your body as well. So there's an element of finding that for them as well.
Yeah, that's always something that I've always really struggled with, actually, to get past is the song. And theme.
It's hard. It's
really
so hard.
really hard, because that song has to connect with you.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. And I have a lot of students that are like, oh, like, what about this song? I'm like, ultimately, it's not up to me. So I'm like, I can tell you if a song's good or not, but I might not like the song. But if you connect with it, we'll do it. That's not down to me. I would never be someone to turn around and be like, no, that's crap, because I don't like it. It's no, if you like it and you can pitch a pole to it, absolutely, we'll work with it. Yeah,
because it's how someone moves.
Yeah,
right. Exactly. With like, to the song, like, you can see when somebody loves the song they're dancing to.
Exactly.
Like, that really comes across. Right, I remember my criteria judging question. I'm so sorry. That completely, I was like, that went from my mind. So how does it work then? So do you all get together at the end, the judges, like, or do you get together at the end of the performance? Like, how long does that part take? So everyone's performed.
Yep.
Then how long is the deciding part? Do you have a time limit? Like, how does that all work? Do you just like all compare?
No, so it's because it's literally scoring, so you have nothing to do with it. Most of the time, we don't know who's won until they pass you a trophy and call the name out.
Really?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're not involved unless there's a joint position, like a joint first, a joint second, or a joint score somewhere, like a special award. They're the only times that you have to like consult.
Wow. So you do all of your personal marking and then it's taken away.
Well, once it's gone, we don't know until literally the prizing ceremony.
Oh wow! I never knew that.
Yeah,
I thought you
all of the comps I've judged have pretty much been the same.
I'm such a novice. I honestly I don't have a clue. I'm so bad. So this is again why it's so good, like just providing information to people that are probably in the same situation, or like even being like, how does it work?
Yeah.
How does it work? So do you go and meet everybody afterwards? Like, do you have a meeting? Like, how does that work? Do you like go and see the girls and guys afterwards, or like after they've all competed?
Normally what happens at the end of a comp is there's like a little cluster on stage after the result where people just go up to each other and like talk to each other and thank each other, which is quite nice.
Oh, that's really nice.
Like, you don't have a meeting. It's kind of like you'll if you've got students or people you congratulate them whether they're placed or not. Like, you've done a great routine. Of course, you're all on stage. You're all bloody champions in my eyes. But yeah, you congratulate people will thank you, people cry a lot, people just want to hug you. It's really nice, but it's kind of just like a cluster on stage for a little while before you get kicked off and I've got to take the poles down.
That must be the worst part.
Yeah, like, get off.
The setting up and the putting down. So are all the poles chrome 145 140, or do they differ through competition?
Depends on the comps, but our rig, which is the rig that Stacey does, which a lot of comps hire, 245 chromes.
Oh, it's 245s.
Yeah, 245s.
Wow.
Other comps that don't use the rig might have difference. I can't speak for those, but the ones that we use, X pole 45 chrome.
Interesting. I always thought one was 40.
Well, there was the old MPD,
yes,
semi-pro that was in Taylor's Retreat. It was like a 38 and a 50.
Oh shit, that is
a big
long
difference. Time ago.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the day a comp brings through a powder coated pole. Like,
well, to be fair,
I think
in Italy they do powder coated ones.
They do, because they're freestanding pole.
Yeah.
Poles are powder coated, aren't they?
Yeah. And because I had a student who competed in a comp and she got there and didn't realise they were powder coated.
Did she hate it?
But she hadn't really been on them. Some people love them. I was like, well, luckily there's no drops in your routine.
I love powder coated. I like every pole that I pole on is powder coated.
So aren't all of yours powder coated, studio, or just a couple?
All of them.
All of them.
All of them, apart from I've got 2 X stages that are chrome, and I'm like, ugh. God.
Yeah, you should make sure you at least got one chrome in case you've got someone who wants to compete though.
So this is coming. This is coming. So it's actually so interesting that you said this, because when I expand, I was going to get 140 and 145 chrome, because I want to make sure that I have the capacity to be able to have people that if they want to compete that they can practice and stuff. But I didn't think it was 245.
I feel like as a comp I did once it was a 42, but I can't remember where. So maybe
and then
generally 45.
One static, one spinning, isn't it?
Yeah.
So they're the basics. There we go. I was already wrong. I thought I thought there were 2 different sizes. But yeah, it'd be nice if they had a powder coated one day. But not
just want powder coat. That's the only time you'll compete, is it?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. As soon as there's a powder coated pole, like, I'm in. I'm there. Yeah, exactly. So when is your next comp then? When's your next big one?
We've got Pole Theatre Amateur, which is March.
Yes.
Then
is that the next one?
Yeah, that's the next one coming up.
They are like in clusters, aren't they? Like, there are seasons of competing.
Yeah.
So you got Pole Theatre.
Yeah, so the amateur is March, the semi-professional and professional is May.
Oh, so was it done in 2 different stages?
Yeah, we did it. We did them together this year over the same weekend, but we're just going to separate them this year because it's kind of a lot over one weekend. It's a lot, like a lot of competitors. It's a lot of energy where you want to give all of your energy. So we're just going to separate them.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what does the amateur? So what we're looking at for category wise in amateur?
So it's for the pro and the amateur. It's all the same criteria.
Okay.
Because then again, that goes by depending if you enter art, drama, comedy, or classic. So you just have a.
Oh, so I didn't know it broke down even further.
Yeah, I feel like, don't quote me on this, it's like one section of the criteria per section is different. It might be two, but it's again, the tricks element of that is only 10 points. So the tricks is quite like the lower part of the marking, but you've got like costume, depending on if you enter comedy, art, drama, or classic. Like for example, comedy, your extra section is it funny? Do you know what I mean? It's like it bases it on
what you're I suppose, and also it's also like, is it relatable to what your like your story is? Like, are you telling a story? Like you say, is it
drama
funny?
Yeah, like if you enter drama, the criteria is you need to have a clear story and it needs to have a beginning, middle, and an end. And that is like a section of the criteria. So yeah, it just depends what division, I'll call it a division, what division that you enter, really, as to what that criteria is. But it's for amateur and semi-pro, obviously the only difference is if you're a teacher or performer or XYZ.
I didn't realize it's split out so far. Oh my God, you must be watching performance after performance after performance. Like, it must just be like non-stop.
It's great.
Yeah, it's always entertaining.
Yeah, there's always like some point someone's gone out like really like outside the box, like wow.
Yeah, that's so cool. Okay, so you've got pole theatre first, and then what's next?
Then we've got elite championships will be July. And then we'll have X-Gem, which will be October. So there's like a gap, and then October.
And elite is invite only, isn't it? Or is there is category?
No,
there's the pros that you have you have a separate category for invite only, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got, it goes semi-pro, pro, elite. There's a certain category for heels. So that category is a different criteria, which will be based on like your heel technicality and whatever heel styles you want. So we've tried to make sure any kind of heel style obviously is welcome. Of course it is. But again, if you want to enter semi-pro, pro, or elite, you can still do that in heels, but you'll just go under the normal criteria. So if you want to be scored under like more of a heels, then you go in the heels division, which again, that's like all the levels in one. And then we have just the invite only, which you've got an artistic division and a heels division again there.
Amazing.
So and then your heels.
So talk a little bit, if you can, about the different divisions. So what is semi-pro? What is pro? What is elite?
So your semi-pro, I'll bring it up so I don't say it wrong, because Stacey doesn't have a go at me. Because I always second guess myself with it.
No, that's good, because then at least the information is correct.
Exactly. And then she doesn't call me now.
Did you tell her you were doing this?
Yeah.
Is she waiting for the info to
just sitting there waiting? So semi-professional, so you can be a paid performer, instructor, workshop instructor, which pretty much applies for all of these, but you can't have won a semi-professional competition. So if you've won semi-pro, then you have to go up to pro, basically.
Go up. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's kind of just, it's almost designed, don't hate me everyone, to not let people hang around.
No, I think that's fair.
Yeah, because it's to be like, move up, come on, challenge yourself.
Yeah, if you compete and you dominate semi-pro,
move up.
Yeah, exactly. You can't be a big fish in a little pond. Like you do, don't you? True, because otherwise, you need to be pushed outside your comfort zone. So is it basically done on your competing background? So if you've competed and won at semi-pro, you then move up to, so if you compete in semi-pro and you don't place, you would then compete in semi-pro again, or could you go to pro?
If you didn't place, you can still go to semi-pro. If you wanted to move up for pro, you can go into whatever category you want. If you wanted to just be like, I've never competed before, but I'm banging, I want to enter elite, go for it.
I love the hair flick. You just didn't
realise, did it? My ear's really burning.
See, you go. Do you think so? I always think someone's talking about me when mine burn.
Yeah, just this one.
Yeah, someone's saying some juicy stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you have the ability to enter any, what's it called? Category you want. But
depending on if you play. So, it's not, it's basically you enter depending on what you've won, basically you find what you enter, what you can't enter, but you can always enter higher above if you want to. You just can't, of course, like again, if you won semi-pro, you can't be like,
I'm going to do this again.
Like, no, you know what, you move up. But again, if you've won a semi-pro, if you want to enter a pro or elite, whatever, it's up to you. Depends how much you want to challenge yourself. But I was just about to say this.
I was just about to say this. If you're doing your competition first and you're going in at pro or elite, then fucking fair play.
But also, what they have to remember is the minute you compete at elite or pro, you've got to stay there.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So you can't drop back.
Yeah, don't be like, nah, I'm gonna go back to beginner now.
What would you say
Stop that.
the biggest is there any other big differences between semi-pro, pro and elite that you is there any differences like apart from just the winning like that you
So it's got, so again, and it depends on the type of competition. So we base this again on developmental competitions, and do we call them social competitions? So your developmental competitions are designed to help you develop your career. That's what they're there for. Like, they get you, you know, higher up in the ranks, as you say. Like, if you're someone who comes into pole and you're like, oh, I really want to aspire to teach workshops and do this and that, then you want to go into a developmental competition, because you go through those ranks, and that's where people generally notice people and they're like, oh, this person's amazing. Do you know what I mean? So it all depends by that as well, on again what type of comp it is. So we basically will just screen those types of things as well, with applications, as to what they want. And generally people do ask, like they'll be like, I'm a bit confused, like I won this competition, do I enter this one or do I enter pro, etc. And generally we can advise them that way. But yeah, it's clear as day on the website, and it does state, like, if you've won this, then you enter this, or you can't enter this. It is as clear as day anyway, but you can.
So there's loads of information around it. You just need to go digging.
Yeah, like it's there. And it's not even go digging, it's you go onto the website and you click comp info and it's right there.
Okay, it's really straightforward.
It's even on the Instagram. I did a post specifically for each category.
Amazing. I did see that actually. Was this on the elite? I saw that the elite was really nicely broken down.
Yeah.
It's really, really good. So when are you competing next?
April.
Are you in Italy?
Yeah.
You're going back. What is it that pulls you to that comp?
I think what pulls me towards it is the elite category in pole art Italy is, like, they are phenomenal. So to even just compete in that category, I mean, they let 1 million people in, so I haven't got hope in the hell of being on a podium, but hey, I mean, I'll still try. But even just to compete against those type of people, it's incredible, because they are like the best of the best. I think, like, when you compete in another country, you just get people from all over, and it's like a different world almost. I always see something I've never seen before.
Wow.
And it just makes me like, wow, like, I want to try really hard because people are good. You know
so do you have a coach?
I do have a coach, yeah. So George, who is quite near to me actually, so he coaches me. But I've kind of got 2 coaches this time. So I've got Jacob coaching me as well as my choreography. So you know what, I need a coach now. I've done it on my own for a little while. I get a bit complacent. I can very much fall into a pattern of,
what you like.
Goes, yeah, and I'll be like, oh, if that doesn't work, I'll just pop a bird of paradise in there and do the same old thing again. I know it's still a bird of paradise and people laugh when I say this, but I'll just be like, oh, I'll just pop the stuff in I can do, rather than challenge myself. So I'm like, oh, it's hard, it scares me, if that makes sense. So George doesn't let me get away with that, which is quite nice. And I'm like, it scares me. He's like, it should. Basically do it. So I'm just like, okay. So it's kind of what I need as well.
And everyone needs a coach at some point. Like, everyone needs that.
I think it shouldn't matter what level you're at, you should have a coach, no matter what level you are.
Agreed. So a couple more questions from me. One was around a lot. I always see the post comp posts that go on social media in terms of how much work and effort goes into each comp. What can you identify happens the most, like, in terms of does everybody hit a wall? That whole imposter syndrome, when does it get really tough? And also preparing your body for a comp, because something that I'm really, really shocked about, and I want to be careful how I word this. I'm really shocked that people don't put more emphasis on how they prepare their body, and like get a coach for preparing their body, like, and take all of your nutrition and cross training into account to be able to help you perform better. And therefore, so how do you prepare your body, and how do you personally prepare? And just going back to like what I see so many people writing on their posts, that like they didn't think they could do it, they were so close to pulling out, like the energy it consumes, like all of these things that you read and you're like, oh my god, it seems like it's really takes its toll on people. like what advice can you give to that? What do you see a lot happen? Like what can, like, is there a point, like let's say 6 weeks out or 2 weeks out from the comp where it gets really fucking hard and you really have to push through and dig deep? Like, do you notice any trends with people, and how do you best prepare your body?
I think, and again, it is hard, and this is like what I warn a lot of my students at the start with it, especially if they have like a really personal routine. If it's something that means a lot. Like I had one of my students, she did like a really personal routine once, and I just said to her from the start, I said, this is going to be hard. I said, you're going to hate me, you're going to cry a lot, it's going to be really tough, you're going to want to pull out, but you need to remember why you're doing it. And we just remembered that throughout. So it's hard. You're
going to cry a lot.
Yeah. Stuff will go wrong.
Yeah, we're not going to be friends by the end of it, so you can remove me off Instagram now.
I'm also one of these people that I don't like people dropping out unless you've got an injury and you physically can't. Absolutely. If your mental state is not doing well, then pull out. If you get yourself into such a state that, again, imposter syndrome, you've got two sides of it. You've got imposter syndrome, but then you've got imposter syndrome when it really affects you and it gets you down, and it's, if it's making someone like just not well, it's not worth it, man. Just drop out, try again next time. It's, as a coach, these are good things because you can spot them. People this is a little bit harder, which is where you should have a good network of friends that will be like, look, I think you should think about XYZ. But it's funny you mentioned the cross training stuff, because I think a lot of people argue all this. It's like, the more pole you do, the better at pole you get. I totally agree with that, but I also totally agree with pole can be very one-sided no matter how much you try. And there's also a lot of muscles we don't use as much on pole that we would do in the gym. I've personally started going to the gym a lot more to work on all my weaknesses, because I've got a messed up shoulder, like probably all pole dancers have got. So I'm trying to just make everything else stronger around that, which will make me better on the pole.
100%.
And again, it comes to, like you say, nutrition, like drinking lots of water, make sure you're having all your protein, like eating right. Like it's all going to make you feel better and perform better at the end of the day as well. Because you're going to probably have DOMs every single bloody day. So you've got to try and just look after yourself.
And I think a lot of the time, like from the stuff that I work, the people that I work with at the moment, the number one thing is they're always under eating. Always under eating. So much more. Doing so much more, and I don't think people realize how many calories you need to fuel what you're doing. And everyone, I haven't had one client yet that's eating where they need to be eating, and I've had to increase everybody. But then the energy levels that you have as a result, like if you just invested a little bit of time in that, and like you said, it's really funny actually, because I remember a little while ago, I did see a lot of stuff all over socials about cross training and mixed opinions on it, and I know that there is mixed opinions on it. But it's amazing how many people are now coming round to it, and how many people are adding in cross training and seeing the benefits too, because it is, you don't have to be like going to the gym 24/7, but like you say, like you're working on those muscle imbalances, it's only going to make you better. It's only going to make you better. So going back to what you see, like at what point, is there anything in particular, or is it just monitoring people, and like you say, if you see people that's like mental state's got really, really bad, you're like, you know what, this isn't for you, babes, like maybe it's not the right thing to do, or like, because I just feel like it's always been pitched, and people that I've spoken to about it, like it seems incredibly stressful.
It's consuming as well. It is stressful. It consumes your life. Like you're in the car, you're listening to your song, you're thinking of things to do. Like you're talking about it when you're at home in the evening with your partner, and you're just talking about pole. This is my routine. You're like, oh, watch this. You're sending your routine to all these people for advice. It's really consuming, and you turn into just this, like, for example, like competition, just that's all you think about. But it kind of shows how much you want it in a way as well. So it's kind of good, kind of bad. You kind of have to know when to switch it off, which again, when you're competing, is very hard. So and again, getting the balance. I mean, if anyone finds the true balance, I mean, even I don't know where that is. But it just, again, I think the main thing is to notice when it's too much and it's affecting you mentally and physically. That's like a big red flag, basically. Okay. But it is always going to be consuming. You just have to remember why you're doing and what you're doing it for. Is it worth it? Again, it's only a couple of months, but it is stressful. It is hard. Anything that's worth it or that challenges you is going to be hard. It's not going to be a walk in the park. If it's a walk in the park, you should be doing something else too easy. Again, go up a level. But
Yeah, it's so true. It really is. It really is. One question that I did get asked on Instagram is, and I could answer this from a different perspective, from a personal training perspective, but somebody asked how you start to build up your stamina on the pole to be able to perform for that amount of time consistently.
I'm very much just do it, but no, like combos, just do it. But you've got like combos, flow, again, doing the routine. But I say even just like things like flows and combos, that's always going to get your stamina up with the pole as well. If you do stuff out of it, you can do HIIT classes, you can do cardio and all that stuff along it. But again, it's still a little bit different. It still kind of again goes in with each other. But I would say, or just attend choreography classes. If you're doing choreography classes, that's still going to help pole based as well.
Yeah, 100%. It's really interesting you say that, actually, because one of my clients at the moment, we're getting her ready for I can't remember what comp it is. She wants to enter 2 comps next year. I think pole theatre was one, and then one was the nationals. So we're getting her ready for that. And she sent me her feedback that she got for her initial, for one of her video entries. And that was the advice that I gave to get up her stamina and I don't understand why people aren't doing this more, by the way, add in flows.
Yeah.
We're not talking like flows where you're doing like inverts and like you don't have to be up the pole, you don't have to be handspring or doing these amazing moves. Just continuously move for 3 minutes, and that can be like the most beginner routine, but that I think people underestimate flows.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. And the bit I used to years ago, I feel like I've said this the other day, I'm going to start bringing it back. At the end of classes, I used to just put a song on to everyone to keep moving until the song ends. And I was like, I don't care if you do the same thing. If you want to go up the pole, great. If you want to roll around, do it. And they used to be completely knackered. It was great, but that's quite nice. But I agree. Even if it's just spins, like just the same spin over again for 3 minutes, it's still going to get it. Like, still going to work.
Just continuously move.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be difficult, because you'll still be fucked.
Yeah. It's hard.
Yeah, even beginner flows. But I'm glad you said that, because that is an incredible way to build up your stamina. Because you need to be like you say, you need to be continuously moving, and it's working particular energy systems too. You need to be, and this is where getting a coach comes in so handy, doing the right things to get your body ready for what you're wanting it to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, Jade, thank you so much. I feel like you've given so much insight. It's been absolutely incredible. Tell us, before we finish, a little bit about what you offer with your coaching, and then your biggest advice for people wanting to compete.
So the new platform, which will be in January, which is called the Competition Guru. I couldn't think of anything more snazzy.
I love it.
It's basically going to be like a package system. I still haven't got the finer details, but it'll be certain packages which can be either online, in person, or a mixture of in person and online. So quite a lot of options, which will give you discounts with a couple of brands.
Oh, I saw that. That's a good idea.
Yeah, so like HL Designs, Feeburk and stuff like that are going to be offering discount codes, and I'm working on some more at the minute. And you'll get like very similar to how they do it with like bodybuilding stuff. So you get like weekly check-ins.
Yeah, basically the same as an online coach. Just you're just going coaching specific.
Yeah, and you obviously get a certain amount of sessions, and you'll have an initial consultation where, like we spoke today, what do you like, what do you want to do, XYZ. So it's just more of a package, and I'll create I'm only going to work with 5 people at a time. And the idea is to make like even little WhatsApp groups. They can all support each other. We can even, if they're doing similar comps, we can have like a day where we all watch each other's run throughs on a Zoom or a FaceTime, and just get like work, which will be quite nice as well. So that's like my vision for it.
Amazing. I think you're hitting a really good niche.
Yeah, so fingers crossed, but yeah, that's what I'm aiming for.
Well, you're very experienced. What is this, 8 years worth of competing? Yeah, very, very, very. No, but you're experienced, and it's amazing, isn't it? Because even at this stage in your career, you still have so much to give and so much to offer. Like, it's just a change in direction in terms of like what you're offering. Like you say, you were competing, now you're judging and putting on all these competitions. Like, your career is evolving to a different side of things, and being able to coach people. And online coaching is so good, by the way. I love, because you get to connect with so many people internationally too. It doesn't have to be in the UK.
Yeah, I do a lot of online private still, and I've got people from Germany all over the place, and it's lovely. I love it. It's just like, new people. It's really nice.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And then, so your top piece of advice, your biggie for people wanting.
My biggest would be yourself. I know that's really cheesy, but don't get so hung up on this person's amazing, I want to be like this person. Like, be yourself, because if you are yourself, it will come across better and it will be true and you will be happy with it, rather than a performance you watch back and you're kind of like, you're just watching someone move. So it's, again, that takes time, I know it does, but also don't let someone dictate to you what song you should be doing, or work with your coach. Like, make sure you're happy with it. If you don't like something in the routine because you think it doesn't suit you, take it out. Like, if your instructor is saying no and it's something that you feel like doesn't suit you, that's a different scenario as to opposed to if it's a trick that's hard when you know they're not struggling, if that makes sense. So it's, they need to be comfortable. At the end of the day, the coach is not the one performing the routine, the student is. So they need to be happy with it 110%.
Can I ask one more question? I'm sorry. I feel like it would become overwhelming when you see who else is in your category. Do you think that's fair? Is that something that you see a lot? Like,
what people do, they go, right, okay, stalk.
Yeah.
And what people look at is, oh, this person's doing a deadlift on their Instagram. Yeah, but you can't see what they're performing like. Also, this routine they're going to do in the comp is going to be different. You don't know what they're going to do. You don't know what's going to happen on the day. They might not even be there on the day. Think about yourself and your own path. If you focus so much on whoever you're competing about throughout your whole journey, you're guaranteed your head's not going to be on it. You're going to be worrying about so many things, other things, that you're probably, things will go wrong in your routine because your head's not where it needs to be. Like, just focus on yourself. And even if you don't place, I guarantee you'll be happy with your performance, as long as you,
I think that's it, isn't it? Staying true to you.
Exactly.
Like you say, like, I feel like if you don't stay true to you, if you didn't place, it's very easy to be like, well, I didn't want to put that move in anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't want to do that anyway. I didn't want that, like, but when you come off and know that it's the absolute best that you've done, you couldn't have given any more. That's all you can do, right?
Absolutely. And that's the best time when you walk off. Like, you know what, I've done everything. Like my Italy routine, it's like, again, everything didn't go how I wanted it to go on stage, but I did the routine for a reason, and it was dedicated to my mum who passed away, and I did what I needed to do. And I was like, oh, done. I was happy with that. I was like, yeah, it wasn't how everything I wanted to go, but I performed it from my heart, and that's all I wanted to do, and I was happy with that. And I didn't look that shit on stage. I looked all right when I watched it back.
Yeah, and that's all you can do, right? Like you say, stay true to you. Stay true to what you want to show off on stage.
Exactly.
Jade, thank you so much. This has been a hugely valuable, and I really hope it helps a lot of people who are in the headspace of wanting to compete, or like not knowing where to go next. But I feel like you can provide a lot of value to a lot of people, especially with your experience with coaching. So hopefully that's really successful for you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.